Here
Hey,
we
hey,
are,
hey. Hello, everyone.
back. We've been
Yes, we are
invited to
back.
return.
We made it past the pilot.
Yes, we did. We are on
We
episode
haven't got
two.
we haven't got some major multimillionaire studio signed us up just yet, so we are open to offers.
Yes,
But for
for
now,
episode
we are
3.
back.
Yeah. Awesome. What have you been up to?
Oh, back to school, back to school, back to school. Back to school has been crazy. I always say, this is my 20th year in education now,
Wow.
and I think to myself, I've done back to school so many times. I've got this. You know what? It's cool. I know what I'm doing. 31st of August, we're ready to roll. Everything's working, and no matter what happens, without fail, on the 1st of September, right? On the night before school opens, the
Mhm.
magic fairies go through the school and unplug everything, turn the servers off, pull out the Wi-Fi cables, and yep, it's like we've done no work over the summer break. So
I'll tell you what.
yeah, that's September.
I know this is,
Yeah.
sorry.
No, fire away, fire away.
I was just going to say, this is my first September where I have not been doing a first day of school. I was on the other end of the first day of school, dropping my daughter off at grade 1, and I was like, this is weird. And all the teachers are coming on. They're like, okay, first day of school. And I know exactly what that feels like. And to be on the other side, I was like, I should have brought them donuts. What am I thinking? I had this opportunity to be like, here's your box of Timbits. I know you need it. I know you're going to eat all these at lunch. Canadian things. But yeah, it was so bizarre. But like, I haven't been in education for 20 years, just 10. But I know the feeling where you're like, okay, I know my routine. I know what we're going to do today. And then every year when you close the door, like all the kids are in the room and they're excited and you close the door. And then that realization of like, I am the one running the show today. It's like, okay, I think we're going to do things. And it's just like everything falls out of your brain. And you're like, how do we do this again? Every year.
Yep, every single year. But hey ho, it's exciting times for you, isn't it, Megan?
Yeah. Made my first short video the other day. It was, respect for social media influencers. That was a good chunk of my day. On the one video, it was like we're experiencing the new and the getting used to things. It's totally different stuff than I'm usually doing this time of year. But it was, that's kind of what I'm doing.
Nice. I have been trying so hard to get into content creation, and it is a full-time job. Like
It really is.
I totally respect those. I used to be that guy. Like, how on earth can these YouTubers be getting paid? They're not doing proper work. Oh my days, they are doing proper work.
They are doing proper work. So much thought goes into it. But you know what it was? I found it really fun to even like when we were like editing the video together, thinking about how everything kind of chunks together. And like I was using Canva, and it was so easy to just kind of drag and drop everything in and trim it. Like it's so user friendly for that kind of thing. So I was thankful for that.
It's funny you say Canva. I've been using Canva to do so many of my like graphical designs and videos and things like that. I used Google Vids for the first time today.
Really?
That was really interesting. Yes,
Cool.
I've got access to Google Vids on my personal account, and I've got access on my we've signed up for the early adopter thing. I can't remember what they call it now in Google Workspace, and I created a video. I had to create a very basic short video today, but it was so easy and so refreshing to see
Awesome.
like a build finally. I mean, it's taken Google a while,
Yeah.
but finally, like to see a built-in web-based video editing tool, and there are quite a few out there. There's, we all know we video in education, and then there's CapCut, which is
Yeah.
just completely uh, blown out this world sort of thing, especially with
Yeah, it's
TikTok.
awesome.
But having school level access to a tool like Google Vids is probably really going to change the game for classrooms.
Yeah, that's a really good point actually, because even in my STEAM class last year, so we were making like short videos, so stop motion videos essentially. So we always start with like the typical like bouncing red ball on Google Slides kind of thing, and then we want to grow past that. So some kids were using Canva and it was going okay. A lot of kids were using CapCut on their phones because we still had phones in the classroom then. So then they were using it for Lego. We're going to talk about that later. But to have Google Vids, like that's really like easy and accessible, and I'm sure it's simple and user friendly for the kids as well.
Yeah, totally. I think I'd love to see. It's early days yet with Google Vids,
Yeah.
but I'd love to see those features sort of move out into some of the other
Yeah.
apps as well, especially Google Slides. Like,
Oh
it
yeah,
just
that'd be so nice.
for it to, because you can now do screen recordings with yourself within Google Slides,
Yeah.
and I think bringing those vids functionality into that's going to be really great. But yeah,
Cool.
lots of playing with Canva and I've been playing a lot with that, but vids was really cool to see.
Yeah. And sorry to interrupt one more time, but actually, because I know we're going to talk about this, but Procreate, so there's Procreate Dreams, but we didn't have access to it. So just the usual Procreate animation feature, the kids found really nice and easy to use.
Yeah, and on the subject of Procreate,
Yeah,
it's been in the news lately,
it
hasn't it?
has.
Because
I'm so excited about
their
it.
CEO made a very brave announcement and I know we talked a lot about AI in our last episode, and it's still been a hot topic even now, and they went in completely the other direction, and I think I'll read out his quote. He said, "We're never going there. Creativity is made, not generated." And I really find that refreshing.
I
I
do
think
too.
in a world where we've got Midjourney and ChatGPT and Gemini and Copilot and everything else that is now creating graphics, um, having a really massive graphical platform like Procreate and saying, nope, we're going to keep it back to basics, what the true purpose of creativity really is. I think that was so awesome to see.
I know, me too, because it could have been so easy for them to go the other way and to jump on the train and do the trendy thing, right? But I really respect that, because that is sort of the essence of creativity is, it's human. And I think that that's an important thing to teach our kids, not bashing AI, because it has so many awesome uses in the classroom and out of the classroom. But I really think teaching kids that I'm trying to find the words here, but like, when you go and draw something and it doesn't appear like it does in your head on the paper or on the screen, not just stopping and saying, oh, well, I'm just going to make this on, Journey or ChatGPT or whatever. I'm not just going to generate that picture so that I have it. Like, understanding that there's a process to this artistry and that it's a skill that can be learned, and just that sort of like slow grow too, I think is so important for kids to learn, just that it's not going to be that AI generated level of quality right away. So I really love this.
I think, and it brings back to those kind of almost like life skills that, just picking up the tool and being able to create something of your own
Mm-hmm.
from scratch, from that blank piece of paper. Yes, like we say, AI has some really great potential out there, especially when you're writing something, being able to generate some content and to get over that blank paper
Totally.
writer's block
Yeah.
effect, I think is great. But the thought of creativity for designing something, for creating something that is visual. I really like the idea of it being, completely natural, completely human,
Mm-hmm.
not totally. Yeah, there's a place for a quick AI generated image here and there,
Totally.
so to speak. But I think, I'll jump to what we were talking about, where Adobe found themselves in quite a bit of hot water
Yeah.
lately with the creator community because they changed their terms and conditions. And we're effectively saying to creators that if you want to use our tools, then you are effectively giving us royalty free worldwide global access to your designs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it raises so many questions and so many things about, what what are these companies doing with our data, right? And ultimately the reason behind that is to feed their data sets, right, to
Yeah.
learn from people's creativity, from that human creativity. And the fact that Procreate are going down this route where, and I've seen some Procreate designs, they are absolutely phenomenal.
Oh
And to
yeah.
know that people who are using that app are going to continue to do that, and what you see, the output that you see is completely 100% human generated, is I think that's great.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I love, you know what? So for me lately, especially, um, AI has been so helpful for the outline, for writing. And I think, when and if I go back to the classroom, that's something I really want to drive home for the kids is it's not there to create for you. And actually, I pulled up Google's back to school AI safety tips, and that was on there. It says use AI to boost your talents, not replace them. And I really liked that they included that. And some of the tools kind of contradict that, I think. And maybe just because AI can do something doesn't mean that it should be used to do that. But I find organizationally in my brain, if I have something to sort of create that outline for me, like first we're going to do this, then we're going to talk about this, and then we're going to talk about this, that gives me the ability to then fill in the pieces and create something that's sort of cohesive for people to read, but is still my own words and creativity. If that makes sense.
I use that phrase so much in my daily life. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
And it applies with tech so much. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the amount of times I will see someone design, from an IT support perspective, I'll always say to someone, right, what's the issue? Tell me about it. Okay, right. Can you send me a screenshot? Cool. And what will the vast majority of users do? They will take a screenshot and then they will launch Microsoft Word or Google Docs and then paste the screenshot inside the word processed document and then send it to me as a word processed document. I said, the amount of times I've seen it is open up the graphic tool, save it as a picture, save it as an image.
Send it.
No, I get,
It feels
it's,
like, it feels like we're doing more jobs than we need to.
oh yeah, totally. Like I always say to people, like you have to go back to basics with word processing tool, whether it's Google Docs, whether it's Microsoft Word, right? You have to treat these applications as if you're writing an essay, right? And I'm talking black text on a white background.
Yep.
Yes, you can do fancy graphics and all of that stuff. That's great, but it's not made to be a desktop published magazine, so to speak, right? You don't create a mixture of text and images for the purpose of like a magazine
Mhm.
within those tools. You use a desktop publishing tool, for example,
Yes.
use something like Canva,
Yep.
right? And it's funny now, like, and I know why people used to do it, because before the way to take a screenshot was to press print screen, right? And then
Right.
it copied to your clipboard, and then, well, where are you supposed to put it? And so Microsoft Word was the one tool that everyone was very familiar with. And so paste, save, send it as a Word document. But now, if you're using Windows PC, you've got Snip and Sketch.
Yeah.
or the snipping tool, if you're using Mac, we talked last week about Shutter, for example, and then you've got Clean Shot X, and you've got the built-in Mac tools and all of those. And when you launch those tools, they then give you the editing interface, which has a save button.
Yeah.
Save it as an image, right?
Yep.
And it comes back to that piece about just, we're the tech champions, right? We know,
Yeah.
and we have a vested interest in these things, and so we sort of, but you always, I always get these moments of where I need to appreciate how much we need to go back to basics sometimes with, and I found that a lot in my own organization, where people who've been working in the organization for 10, 20, 30 years, right? And they come in one track mind. I'm here to launch this application, input my data, print what I need to do a few bits and pieces on the web browser, and go home, right? You come with a one track mind, right? You've got a bucket load of mountain load of workload that you need to get through. Everyone's stressed out. The last thing you want to think of is how you do things differently, right?
Yeah.
Another example that I'll give you of the amount of times I see is when someone launches the web browser, whether it's Chrome, whether it's Safari, whether it's whatever you're choosing to use. And so I'll say to them, go to the website, bbc.co.uk. What will they do? In the Omni box, they'll type in google.com, and then they'll go to the Google search page, and then type in bbc.co.uk in the search bar, and then search for BBC, and then click on the link to get there. And you could have just done it in one fell swoop from the start.
Yeah.
And I call it the Chinese whispers effect, where you've learned something from your colleagues, or someone has shown you how to do it wrong, and then that just spread through like wildfire. This is how you access the BBC website. You have to go do a Google search for it from the Google search box, and then
I had this exact lesson in my 6th grade class. I was like, we're going to Google, then we're going to search it, then we're going to say, is it this one, or is it this one, or is it this one? And I'm like, the website is on the board. Type it into the thing. It was like, friends, this is called the Omnibox. I was very like cheesy about it, but like, we need to know more about how to be as lazy as possible so that that's actually more efficient. Like, that's my goal. It's like, can I do this faster? Or is there a way that I can do this with this so that I don't have to go over here too? And I'm sure like we all have those little things where we have the way that we do it, and there's an easier way that we don't know about. But I think that's our goal, is just be as lazy as possible with your tech.
And I think, to put the positive spin on it, it's about reducing that workload, right?
Yeah.
It's about the tech is out there. Coming back to the AI, right? And not using it to replace what we do, but using it to help us streamline what it is that we're trying to do, right? And I think that's why the tech is out there. And I always say that, tech related training in schools and organizations around the world will never stop, and it must never stop, because it is evolving far too fast for any of us to be comfortable with.
Yeah.
And every day is going to be a school day when it comes to new tech, because
totally
it's there and it's always changing, and we need to constantly be able to keep up with all of those changes. There's going to be, yes, we've done it, and I always come back to a quote that one of my fellow colleagues in education here in the UK, Abdul Chauhan, says, the 6 most expensive words in education is "we've always done it that way."
Oh, yeah.
And it is, right?
Worst
You
words.
think to yourself, yeah, if it's not broke, why fix it, right? And it's the fact that, well, you don't realize that it's not broke, and maybe it's not broke, but then there is a more efficient way to do it, right?
Yeah. But I think just always looking for those ways to make things more efficient, maybe work better for you, take the load off, things like that, then that's that's good. We don't need to reinvent the wheel with all the new shiny things. And you and I have talked about this too, sitting in a PD and having somebody come in and say, here are 50 websites that you need to use today in your classroom. And then you leave going, I don't remember. And it's just your bookmark bar is just, you know, it's like, be intentional, but always just keep your eye on it. Just keep seeking out new ways to kind of keep things fresh. And yeah, it's just
I need to
balance.
find a better way to do this, because I have you can now send yourself messages on WhatsApp, but before you could do that, I created a WhatsApp group with just one person in that group. That was me.
Yeah.
And I call that group notes, right?
Yes.
And every
Huh.
tiny little snippet that I see on every tiny little snippet that I see, I'll when I'm scrolling through TikTok or Instagram, it's like, you know, amazing website, you must know pot 236, right? And it takes you to this, it shows you to the website. I'm like, you know what, that's actually cool. I'm going to put that in my notes.
Mhm.
And the thing is that you've got hundreds of notes.
I have an app for that.
And then it's kind of like, do you ever go back to those things, right?
No.
And do you remember that, right?
Case in point, my Twitter X bookmarks. There are so many cool things in there, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I've tried to look for a few more. You know, there are loads of apps out there. There's Pocket and there's other bookmark apps. Wakelet is a massive one in education, right?
That's
And I have been using Wakelet quite a bit. But again, it's about, I think you only start to get to embrace something into your daily life if you start to put it into practice, right? And it works with it's the same with everything, right? And I think once it's probably a real discipline skill to to be able to do that, where you start, you know what, I've seen that great thing out there, right? Let's give this a try and really go into it, and finding the time to really plug it into your life as to, right, how is this going to work in the way that I need it to work for me, or how it can better improve the things that I do and reduce my workload.
Yeah, you have to curate it a little bit, right? Because otherwise it's just so many things. But that takes time too. So
It's finding time to save time, isn't it?
yes.
Fun and games.
Yeah.
So what's happening in the world of STEM, Meagan?
Well, in the world of we're still stemming along, you know. I've been spending 36 years making my first short video. So I'm a little behind in the world of STEM because I've been trying to use it. But you know what I've been digging into lately is Instructables. Have you been on that website?
No.
Okay, so Instructables.com is kind of like an open hub for people to post how-tos, different projects that they've made, and all kinds of things. So you want to talk about like my bookmark bar. It's been Raspberry Pis, it's been soldering projects, I need to spend more time looking at projects that I can share with other people and less time projects that I am just going to do like in my basement by myself. Because I'll tell you what, the other day I ordered some brass rods and some LEDs, and I'm going to be making some Halloween themed jewelry. So the STEM from here is mostly happening just me, myself, and I. But Instructables.com is one that I used lots in my STEAM class. If the kids were like, oh, I really want to make this, or I want to make something using this, I'd say Google whatever it is you want to use and Instructables. And so many cool things. Like I found one the other day where somebody is using, I can't remember if it was a Raspberry Pi or what they were using. And they had a little camera and they were training it using machine learning to be an alarm clock so that you had to get up and do a movement. And then the camera had to recognize the movement in order for your alarm clock to turn off. It was like, I think we're going to make that. Because if there's one thing I can't do, it's wake up.
One way to get the kids out of bed.
Kids, me. The kids are great. They're up at 5. I'm the one who's like, no, please. Yeah.
Brilliant. I mean, there's a funny TikTok, Instagram channel that I see. I think it's like Johnny Makes Machines or something, where
Oh, cool.
there's this guy who makes these way over exaggerated machines
Mhm.
and stuff. And it usually ends up with him being drenched in a bucket of water to, like, wake him up, sort of thing. But then at the same time, once that's happened and he's got out and it's triggered something else, he'll then have the hair dryers to then
I love it.
dry him off, and all of that is brilliant.
Oh, yeah, you wanna talk about content creation, that's my dream, is to have, like, a YouTube channel with Mark Rober and just be like, "So what are we making today?" I'm game
Phenomenal.
for it, yeah. Oh, but there have been all kinds of new updates. There have been a bunch of Apple updates. Do you wanna talk about that?
Yes. So Apple had their annual September event where they announced the new iPhones. So we have got new iPhones coming, which were launched today. So you probably can't buy them now because they're probably out of stock.
They're gone.
But um, the iPhone 16 and the iPhone 16 Pro, and uh, they are, I would probably say, minor updates, shall we
Mhm.
say, from a hardware perspective on
Right,
compared to last year's phones. They've got new CPUs, which is an annual thing, but these CPUs are very much targeted at their main thing that they're focusing on, which is Apple Intelligence.
right,
It's all about Apple Intelligence. iOS 18, the iPhone 16, everything is going to be about the AI features within iOS 18 and how it can improve your use of the operating system. But the new A18 chip is coming to both of the phones now. So historically, what's happened is the base iPhone, which was the iPhone 16 in this case,
right,
has had last year's CPU, and the iPhone Pro 16 Pro has had the Pro models in the past have had the latest CPU.
right.
What they've now done, and I think reading all of the news articles, that was because there was a worldwide chip shortage and there was a whole lot of stuff going
Oh,
on
fair
where Apple couldn't supply the chips. But now we're back to enough CPUs in the world, and they've put the A18 chip into both phones, which is great. And you're going to get all of these new Apple Intelligence features. Now, what's interesting is the iPhone launched today. People will probably be getting it in their hands next week. iOS 18, I think, is coming out either this weekend or next week.
cool. Okay.
None of the Apple Intelligent features are actually launching with the first version of iOS 18.
That's interesting.
So I'm actually running the release candidate version of iOS 18. So I've got pretty much the version of iOS 18 that everyone's going to get. There's no Apple Intelligence features in it.
Oh,
In fact, I'm not going to get the Apple Intelligence features at all because I'm running the iPhone 14 Pro Max, which won't be
right.
getting any of the features. Unfortunately,
Mhm.
not annoyed in any way whatsoever, but at the same time, not parting with £1,200 of cash to get a
Yeah.
minor upgraded hardware. But anyway, and this raises a massive quandary, shall we say?
Mhm.
And one of the big tech YouTubers, MKBHD, has always said, "Don't buy products with the promise of future updates." And we had a few AI tools that came out recently. You had the Rabbit R1, I think it was, and then you had the Humane Pin, which kind of almost released as if they were beta products, right? But
Mhm.
actual beta products that you paid for. And it's like, oh, yes, this tool is here now and it can do this. But there are loads of things coming that it'll be able to do further down the line, right?
Yeah, that's interesting.
And you're kind of taking the tech company at face value
Yeah.
for that. And okay, this is Apple, right? They're probably, and they've said they're going to launch towards the end of the year. They're probably going to do it, right?
Yeah, they're
Otherwise,
probably
their share price will probably take a massive nosedive. But it's kind of like, if you're announcing it, then and you're releasing the new phone built all around this particular feature,
Yeah.
You want to kind of see the feature
Why the
when you buy
delay, I
the car.
wonder?
Imagine going to a showroom and buying the new latest car.
Yeah.
You can't drive. You can buy it now, but you can't drive it until
Mhm.
3 months later.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of, I
You
know that's
could.
a bit that's a bit outrageous, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's something to think. But obviously we will probably definitely see Apple Intelligence features. They've been talking about it, and the beta version of iOS 18.1 is out, which does have the Apple Intelligence features, so it is definitely coming.
Okay.
It's only US English at the moment. They're releasing a few more localized languages towards the end of this year, but new iPhones. And there is a new capacitive button on the iPhone as well that
I was
will
reading
allow
about
you
that.
to do all sorts of interesting stuff with the camera. And one of the main things on that is they are coming out with their new feature called visual intelligence, right? And what
Mhm.
visual intelligence is you can press this new capacitive button and scan something, and then Apple will tell you, or Siri and the AI will tell you what that is. Now, Megan, stop me if you've heard of this feature
Sounds
before.
exciting. That is a feature that I use every now and then, and I'm pretty sure that that feature is actually called Google Lens.
Yes, indeed it is. No, it is visual intelligence, right? That's what's coming to the iPhone, and that's the iPhone. But in addition to that, and oh, let's not forget, we're going to get some nice new colors as well,
Oh,
because
yeah,
we
gotta
all
love the
want all
colors.
the colors,
I
right?
mean, yeah.
We've got Watch Series 10, Apple Watch Series 10, so their 10th series. I really thought that the Apple Watch announcement was going to be a lot bigger, seeing as it was Series 10, right?
Right.
Like they made a
Yeah.
big deal of the iPhone 10, right? Being the 10th revision of the iPhone and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
no,
No.
again, probably a minor update. Apparently, it's got the biggest screen in an Apple Watch ever, which
Okay.
is like a couple of
I was
millimeters.
gonna say, how big is like through an iPad on your wrist?
Indeed.
Pulls
So
his weight.
that's Apple Watch Series 10.
Cool.
Now, the big announcement, and I think one of the best announcements was they announced new AirPods. So you've got new
Yeah.
AirPods coming. So you've got AirPods 4. So you've got new base level AirPods model, which is coming with a new design that's supposed to fit nicer in your ears. There's two models of the AirPods 4 coming. So there's the base model, and then there's another model which is about 50 pounds, $50 more expensive, which also includes active noise cancellation.
Mhm.
Now that's going to be really interesting because normally if you have active noise cancellation, it's in-ear headphones or over-the-ear headphones, which
Yeah.
creates a seal that will allow the noise cancellation to work. These are your normal headphones that you just put into your ear, and it'll be interesting to see how active noise cancellation works on those.
Yeah.
And I'm quite excited for that. One of the biggest letdowns of the AirPods announcement was the AirPods Max. Right,
Those are the over the ear ones.
this is their $550 headphones that have
Yeah.
been out since 2020 that haven't been refreshed in 2024. But they announced they are refreshing the AirPods Max.
Okay.
And Megan, brace yourself because this is big,
Colors?
right? There's new colors,
All right.
yes. But the big announcement, the major refresh for the AirPods Max is it's going to be getting USB-C. And
Okay.
that's it.
All right.
Yes. And they're still coming in at $550. And all they've done is replace the Lightning port with USB-C. What's really crazy is the base level AirPods, the AirPods 4, come with the H2 chip, which is their fancy CPU that allows them to have all of those fancy audio features.
Right.
The AirPods Max at $550, the refreshed version still has the H1 chip. They haven't even put the latest chip into the AirPods Max. That was a bit crazy.
That is a bit crazy.
Not sure why Apple went down that route, but
Not
maybe in
sure.
a couple of years' time we'll get the new AirPods Max.
The
And as
new
Tim
AirPods Max.
as Tim Cook likes to say, the best AirPods Max we've ever created.
Yeah, isn't that just how it goes? That's
But
amazing. Oh,
what was the best show-stopping announcement, I would say, is they haven't released a new version of the AirPods Pro, right?
okay.
And that's the in-ear version. So you've got the AirPods Pro. But what was amazing is they now just yesterday they achieved FDA clearance for the
Yeah,
AirPods Pro to be used as a clinical hearing aid,
that is so
which
cool.
I think is phenomenal. Like
Yeah.
I've seen, uh, I mean, we could get into a whole other conversation about medical, the way our medical industries work.
Yeah.
We're very fortunate to have the NHS here in the UK, and I know you guys have got something similar in Canada,
Yeah.
but in the USA, medical stuff costs an awful lot of money. I
Yeah.
was shocked to learn that basic hearing aids are like in the thousands, and not
Mhm.
just like one or two, like six, seven, 8,000 for
No.
$1,000 for a basic hearing aid. The AirPods Pro is now a certified clinical hearing aid, and it costs $249.
Right? Just like the
That is going to
accessibility of that is huge.
that is going to change people's lives. I
Yeah.
think that is phenomenal.
So cool.
And you know, that's going to be really interesting to see, and it'll be really interesting to see how, you know, I'd be interested to speak to some of our speech and language therapists. So the one of the schools that I work at is a deaf specialist school,
Oh,
and
okay.
it'll be interesting to see whether or not this is something that is going to be really, really useful and feasible. But you know, can you imagine buying hearing aids over the counter for $249?
Right?
That's phenomenal. And
Yeah.
and you know, the AirPods Pro has really good reviews as a headphone product on its own anyway.
Mhm.
And now the ability to then change people's lives by
Right?
having a clinical function like that.
It's so cool. I'm really interested to see, like, the comparability between, the hearing aids that are currently being used and these new AirPods. It'd be really interesting.
And the fact that with normal hearing aids, um, from some of the stuff that I've been reading, it's just these things are just designed to amplify sound,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They don't do anything else with that. So you have to put your hearing aid and you still have to
Mhm.
hold the phone to your ear to hear
Yeah.
what with the AirPods Pro,
Don't have to.
right? All of that Bluetooth connectivity is built in, right? You've got all of that stuff. You just by putting the stuff in, you'll be able to hear what's on devices now. And with the active noise cancellation, ironically, we're saying this with a hearing aid,
Mhm.
it'll be able to drown out um, noise that you don't want to hear, and
Yeah.
be able to amplify noise that you do want to hear, which regular hearing aids can't do.
Yeah.
And
So cool.
it's just phenomenal. And you know, Apple's always been a company to be known for, you know, the inverted commas Apple tax, right?
Yeah.
They do not release cheap devices.
No.
But suddenly what was a very expensive pair of headphones for $249 suddenly is like, wow, this is $249
Yeah.
for clinical hearing aids.
And there's a lot
Like,
of value there, and even just the customizability of that tool, like, to be able to drown out background noise or focus in on this, like, to be able to customize that for whatever it is that you're doing, is huge. That's so cool. Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything for the Apple updates.
Yeah.
The I think this weekend or next week at some point, iOS 18, iPadOS 18, watchOS. I can't remember what version, 10, 11 we're on.
Right.
The new version of macOS Sequoia.
Mhm.
macOS Sequoia, I've been playing with that on my MacBook. It is so cool. And one of the best features, well, I won't say one of the best, one of the most fun features is being able to mirror your iPhone screen
Oh
on your
my
Mac,
gosh.
which is phenomenal. But there are some really great features coming out with that. So yes, it's all systems go with Apple at the moment. So
Yeah.
I can imagine there's going to be, yes, like Luis in the chat has said, Android 15 is coming, and I'm sure Microsoft will be will be announcing some new funky Windows updates at some point, and new devices as well. So your move, Google and Microsoft.
Yeah, well, and people don't know this, but you have been trying to brainwash me into switching to the Apple ecosystem for some time now. And
I don't appreciate the negativity there, Megan.
there's
I think
none.
the
You're blowing my
the
mind.
the brainwash phrase, I think. I'll probably tell you, as you're obviously currently in the incorrect camp, shall we say? And so we need to do some strategic fixing.
Some strategic fixing. We need to rewire the neural pathways in which you make your decisions, Megan. You know what? I'll tell you what, talking about all these new features and the research, we were talking just before the show about the deep dive that I went into. It's close. It's going to happen. Like the ASUS is still hanging on. But as you can see from the occasional flickering of my screen, we have just moments left together before we say goodbye. So yeah.
I mean,
we'll see what happens.
We should probably say buying a replacement Windows PC or a Chromebook will probably fix those issues. But in this instance, no, totally. I don't think we'll ever fix those problems unless you buy a MacBook.
We will see. We will see what happens. Is she going to dive in and switch back to Apple? Only time will tell. Only time will tell. And the more time I spend with you, the higher that, it's more likely. So
yeah. I need to get onto some of that compensation scheme from Apple, and
there you go. There you go. Yeah, you can switch me to Apple, and then I will switch you to GridView, and then everybody can be happy. It'll be great.
I thought we were doing so well, Megan. I thought we were doing so well, and then you had to bring up the G word.
Yeah, it's good. No, it is. Yeah, as a visual human, GridView is the only way to go, and I'm not actually sure why list view exists, but that's not what we're talking about today. So I'm just going to leave that there, and we're going to move on and talk about more Google things. Yeah, see? Google Gemini.
Gemini, yes, Gemini indeed. Google have just released Gemini specifically for education.
Yeah, which is interesting.
Yes. What is very interesting is they have announced that Gemini is coming to Google Workspace for Education, and the usage of Gemini with Google Workspace for Education accounts means none of that data set will be used to effectively teach Gemini, which is
that's important.
Which is a huge tick box in the privacy and all of that perspective in terms of its use in education. But there are lots and lots of potentials there, aren't there?
There are. And you know what was really interesting too, because you see so much, especially with other educators, about how we're sort of getting kids used to AI, talking about ethical use of AI in the classroom and things like that. But I was reading up on the Google for Education news blog with the news updates, and they were really clear on there about Gemini tools being used for 18 plus, right? So for many of us, that kind of cancels out our student population. So that's, teachers, post-secondary. So I thought that was really important. We're talking about how to, level up with AI, how to use AI in the classroom, but also understanding that while we're showing kids these things and we're using it maybe with kids, having kids actually use it is maybe not recommended.
And I think that is a massive challenge. There are an awful lot of educators out there who are talking about how to use these tools with the children. And again, we discussed terms and conditions last episode. But I'm yet to see anything that is 13 plus. I think the only thing that I know is Canva, which can be used with 13 plus. I know that there are a few other ones out there. I haven't personally used School AI or Magic School, but again, those AI tools are built specifically for education. So there may be some potential there. But in terms of primary school children, nothing that I know of at the moment.
No, and I think that just like primary school, like it's just a really good opportunity for them to focus on being creators. They are creators, they are artistic. Like I don't think we want to take that away from them. I think we want to withhold that like yes, it's really cool and it's a great tool, but I think if it's that shiny new thing that can make these amazing pictures, then we might lose that seeking of mastery to become a better artist or to become a better writer or anything like that. It can, again, it is a tool, and we've talked lots about that, but I think that is very much a tool for those of us who have an understanding of how to build skill sets. Yeah.
Definitely. And on the subject of creativity, Canva, which
Yeah.
we briefly mentioned, Canva recently purchased a company called Affinity, who I think are based here in the UK. And they have a suite of tools for design that are comparable to some of Adobe's creative cloud applications. The Canva have made a phenomenal announcement, which is they have made Affinity available to education and nonprofit absolutely free,
So cool.
which I think is just amazing, and it's going to save schools so much in subscription fees when it
Mhm.
comes to again, inverted commas, using professional design applications.
Yeah.
Affinity is one of those professional design applications that is, again, and I know our friend Darren White will love this, industry standard, because it's a huge argument we have every day where what is industry standard? You go back 20, 30 years, the stuff that was industry standard, is that industry standard now? Like, um, and it just reminds me, without going too much on tangent, I saw an Instagram reel from ITV News, so one of the big news broadcasters here in the UK, that said for the first time ever, people are now consuming news more via social media platforms than they are actually watching it on the TV,
Oh, I
right?
believe that.
And so at one point in time, you would have said the industry standard for news broadcasts is television, right?
Mhm.
But not anymore, right?
Yeah.
And all of these big, and when I look at ITV News, especially, right, and any, whether you're watching BBC News, Sky News, Fox News, CNN, whatever, right, it's maybe the man or the woman or both together, very business dressed orientated, sat in front of the screen, reading from the
Teleprompter?
screen view, the teleprompter. Thank you. And you know, that's the traditional way of
Yeah.
how news has always been presented to us, right? But then these very same channels, ITV News, have now got a, a series called The Rundown, right? Where it's a very trendy guy in very not business orientated clothing, doing some quick fire messages of what the news is, right? And
Mhm.
this is being heavily consumed, right?
Yeah, short
And
form videos.
would you call that industry standard anymore?
That's so interesting.
And and so I think it's really interesting how we focus that in education as to why are we using a particular product, right? Because we say it's industry standard, but it comes back to that argument to say you're not teaching someone how to use a product, you're teaching them the skill on how to do what that product enables you to do. Let's
Yes.
rewind. Yeah, we're talking about the latest iPhones that have come out, right? Let's rewind to before the iPhone. If you were teaching someone to use a product, we'd still be using the Nokia brick phone, right?
Yeah.
With the T9 keyboard, because that was industry standard at that
Mhm.
time. And what we should have done is teach people the skill on how to use the device, right? And so it's about being platform agnostic. Yes, we have lots of banter about, you know, Windows and
Yeah.
Mac and Chrome and iOS and all of that stuff. But ultimately, you have to go back to basics. That what are you using these tools to do? You're using these tools to write a report. You're using these tools to write a letter to the parents, for example, if you're in school. ultimately the parent who's reading the letter doesn't care whether you've used Word
Oh,
or Google Docs or whatever it is out there, right? They want to read
yeah.
the message.
Yeah, and this is such a thing in STEAM, I find as well, or with the idea of robotics and coding. And it sometimes becomes we're using this type of robot, we're using Lego, we're using Vex, and now we've got this robot. And it needs to be more, I think, focused, like you're saying, on the skill. What are we learning? Right? What is our goal? When we're talking about, I mean, here in Alberta, we just had a new science curriculum roll out this year. And there is a specific computer science component to that curriculum. And so at first, everyone was kind of panicking and saying, okay, well, what kind of robots do we need? What kind of tools do we need? What kind of computers? Things like that. It was really focused on the stuff. And when you actually dig into it, it's from K to 3, it's really procedural learning. So it's that step by step. And you can do so many of those things just unplugged. And they can be fun and they can be play based. And then as you get a little bit into the upper elementary grades, grades like 4 to 6, let's say, it's more of the logic. So if this happens, then that will trigger that. And still lots of opportunities for unplugged things, lots of opportunities for that sort of cardboard makerspace kind of stuff. And then we get into the actual coding. So when you're planning your year, focus less on, okay, I'm going to use Canva or I'm going to use Lego or Microbit or whatever. All these tools are fantastic. But instead, maybe focus on what skill do you want to teach? Right? What is that actual creative skill or coding skill if you want to teach conditionals or whatever? Focus on that. And then it offers a little bit more choice in STEM for what the kids want to use, right? And then it's less like instruction based, like do this, then do this, then do this. You know what I
I
mean?
always come back to an analogy of learning how to drive, right? You learn
Mhm.
how to drive a car.
Mhm.
You don't learn how to drive a Toyota. You don't learn
Yes.
how to drive a Ford. You don't learn how to drive a Mercedes, right? And so I always say to people, when you're starting out your career, you might not have enough money in the bank. You're driving a Ford or you're driving a Toyota, and then suddenly you get a promotion, and suddenly you got more money and you can afford a more luxury car, and you decide to get BMW or a Merc or a Range Rover or something.
Yeah.
You're not going to then turn around and say, I'm not going to upgrade to the more luxury car because the indicator is on the right hand side and I'm used to it being on the left hand side, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately, if we're arguing the basics, the goal is to get from A to B in the
Mhm.
car. It's just how luxury you want to do it, right? But going back to that skill, the skill is to learn how to drive, right? And you're not going to then say, well, I don't want to drive the Merc because it does it differently to how the Toyota does it, but
Yeah.
I want the Merc because it's a more prestigious car. Ultimately, you have to learn how to adapt, but the fundamental skill, whether you're using that vehicle or using that vehicle, is the driving aspect of it, isn't
Yeah.
it? And
Yeah.
going back to that basic, where you're learning the skill, not the application, not the tool.
Exactly. It's just transferable skills. And I think that that's really important too, because technology changes so fast and there are always new skills, or sorry, there are always new tools and things like that. And so if you have those transferable skills, it just slips into the next thing.
I love Lewis's comment about automatic or standard or manual, how we call it in the UK, and electric versus gasoline or petrol, as we are here in the UK.
Yeah.
I would love an electric car. Our infrastructure just is not there at all whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I think me too. It's so cold here. It's so cold. Like, is
I
my
think, yeah,
Tesla like minus 50 Celsius? What are we doing? Like it's just gonna roll over and be like, nope.
well, it's the thing about, and it goes back to phones as well. It's what you call charging anxiety, where, like, when I go to visit people, when we go to visit family, for example, it's like 230 miles away to visit my in-laws.
Mhm.
And you look at when you're buying an electric car and the range only goes up to like 150 miles. And so it's like, well, that's not even going to get me to my location. And then where do I go and charge up? And it's not like filling petrol, right? Where you know, 5 minutes and you've got a full tank
Yeah,
and done and dusted. No, you've got
mhm,
to sit for like half an hour and hope to find a fast charger or something or another. And
yeah.
yeah,
But you know what? I've talked to people who love it. They're like, "Oh, we're making our way. We're gonna stop here and charge, and then we're gonna stop here and charge." And that is like the journey for them. Whereas I'm like, "But how long is that taking you? And what if there's like driving through the Canadian Rocky Mountains, you don't know what's going to happen. You're going to get stopped. It's snowing. There's a moose. Like it's all the stereotypical things that you can imagine can and will happen. You'll be stuck for hours. True story. This is completely off topic. True story. We were driving, I don't know, we were going snowboarding somewhere and we got stopped on the highway 4 hours. It was so icy. The road was so icy. People were playing hockey on the highway. Is that not the most Canadian thing you've ever heard? I was like, I need to get a video. Nobody will believe me if I tell them this happened. Incredible.
brilliant.
There's no EdTech relation to that story whatsoever.
No, funny story. This morning, so I was driving to work this morning,
Yeah.
and there was a Mercedes in front of me. But it was an electronic Mercedes. It was electric Mercedes. It was
Yeah.
a very prestigious looking car. I think it was
Cool.
the EQE model or something. Never heard of it before.
Nice.
But what fascinated me as the car turned round the road is the shape of electronic cars are just, I don't know what it is about them. They're just designed to look very futuristic.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's a marketing ploy from these companies, but it's like I looked at the car and you could tell, in fact, you probably couldn't tell it was a Mercedes other than the fact that it had a badge, right?
Oh, yeah. Fair enough.
It was very, I don't know, it didn't have any jagged rough edges. I've noticed electric cars flow very much like you're designing them in in some CAD program.
Yeah.
They
They really do.
they have a very distinct design to them. They have very distinct fronts. They have very distinct rears, and it's just like I found that really fascinating. And I don't know if Tesla is the one to blame for that, where you
Yeah.
know you can tell Tesla was a very different beast compared to almost every other car that's
Yeah.
on the road. And it's almost like all the other manufacturers are kind of catching up with them now and trying
Yeah.
to sort of emulate. But it's just
Maybe.
I'm yet to see an electric car that just looks like your regular petrol car. I
It's
haven't
true.
seen one yet.
No,
Yeah.
they do all have that like sleek, smooth door handle kind of design to
Yeah,
them.
the
Yeah.
door handles that you have to like press in and stuff. And also inside, the inside of it is you can see almost like how traditional cars have very boxy, uh the heater's been added on, and then the radio's been added on, and then the dashboard has been added on.
Yeah.
Whereas you go into an electric car and it's just one very flat surface, right?
Mhm.
And well, where's the heater? And then suddenly you press a button and then
There
like
it
heat
is.
magically appears.
I love stuff like that. It's true.
It's a geek's it's a geek's dream, absolutely. And I think that's probably one reasons I want to. Who cares about who cares about electricity and the environment? None of that. I just want the electronics.
Isn't that just the end? That's just it, right? It's like, oh, yeah, that's cool, but like it looks cool. So we're going to want that. It's so true.
Yeah, but then in the chat, Luis raises a good point. And then you got the Cybertruck,
And then
which
you
is yeah,
keep your
which is like
fingers away
it's
from the
almost like a
cyber.
child designed, you know, like just put some very jagged shapes together.
Maybe that's what happened. There are never mind. We could talk about the Musk children thing. We're not going to go there. But I don't
No.
know.
Lots of fun and games.
So much fun and
Um,
shenanigans.
what's happening in the world of education and phones in the classroom, you touched upon that
Yeah.
a bit earlier.
So just kind of towards the end of the year last year, different provinces in Canada started saying we're going to be banning cell phones in the classroom. Not all of, I just checked into it recently because I'm out of the classroom this year. Not all of the provinces have gotten on board here, but it was like sort of a ripple domino effect. So, yep, you're banning classrooms, we're banning cell phones. We're banning cell phones too. And it kind of continued throughout the summer that this was going to happen. And I was really interested going back to school to kind of see how this was unfolding, if we would get any policies from the school. And especially in Alberta, it's been very much sort of, there are no regulations in place, there are no policies set in stone yet. It's sort of up to the school's discretion. Which is tricky because then, and this ties into other things as well, but then it kind of leaves that disparity, diversity, different schools. It's not a solid policy. It changes depending on where you are. And from the schools here, I haven't seen anything yet. So that's been a little bit strange. I sort of expected, because those announcements were made at the end of last school year, I expected to see something pop out for this school year. But so far it's been pretty quiet. Yeah, I find it really interesting. But I did notice sort of in my research with some of the Google updates. So Fitbit's obviously owned by Google now. Fitbit Ace is their kid-friendly smartwatch. And they're releasing an update called School Time. So that means that the parent has the ability to limit sort of the functionality of that device during the school day, which is kind of interesting because if you're having a cell phone ban in your classrooms, are you also banning smartwatches? So for the parents who are looking to kind of limit that device for the kids while they're at school, which is a great idea personally for me, I thought that was kind of neat. And it'll be interesting to see in the next couple months what happens with this ban. Good things and bad things. I mean, I did want to talk a little bit about Google Lens because there are some pretty cool things that you can do with that in the classroom, especially if you've got your devices out. It's so easy to just take them outside. I noticed Google Lens has a homework feature now. So if you go into Google Lens, it says translate, search, and homework. And the idea with the homework tool, I have a quote from the blog and it says, take a photo with Lens in the Google app to get step-by-step help so you can learn to solve it on your own. So I was like, well, that's pretty cool. I like that step-by-step help idea. That's kind of nice because if you're at home and parents can't help with homework, that could be a really cool tool. So I just kind of did a little fiddling around. I printed off a challenging math problem and scanned it with my phone. I didn't notice a lot of differences. It seems like it is still very much like I tried it with search and I tried it with homework and I got the exact same results. So I'm not really sure if we're going to be able to expect more from Google with that. But in the end, it just pulled up it was just a search. And so the first thing that popped up was the answer to the question, which I didn't like, because I felt like that didn't match up with the description and what they said about this feature. So what I expected was maybe a YouTube video or some step-by-step tutorials, but it was just sort of a lot of forums about how to solve the problem after the fact, like after the answer was posted. So I'm like, how many kids are going to go through and figure out how to solve the problem, and how many are just going to see the answer, write it down? So I don't know how I felt about that.
Yeah, I mean, we've got similar. I think probably the same conversation is happening throughout the world about phones in the classroom, and the Department for Education here released some guidance back in February 2024. If you want to read it, it'll be on the show notes. But I think it raises a whole lot of questions as to, yes, there is an awful lot of, or there seems to be, when you look on social media and in other education forums, there's a sway towards, yes, we need to ban devices in the classroom because children having too much screen time as it is, blah blah blah, all of that.
Yeah.
There was a really good argument that I read to say from I can't remember who it was now, but from a friend of ours who is a massive EdTech champion, and I remember her saying that devices, yes, absolutely, we shouldn't have phones in the classroom, but we need to have a device in every student's hand.
Yes.
If we can bridge the digital divide, then there isn't any need for phones in the classroom.
It's true.
Phones in the classroom are plugging a gap that the digital divide is causing,
Yeah.
right? And until we can get over that digital divide, you're always going to have this argument for and against, right?
It's so
Because pretty much everything, ultimately, the phone is a computer, just a very small one that fits in your pocket, right?
true. Mhm.
But if we were to get proper devices, whether they're full on laptops or whether they're tablets and iPads and that kind of stuff, if we were to get those into the hands of every child, and we keep saying preparing our children for life in the 21st century. Well, guess what? We're a quarter of the way in now. By the
Yeah.
time they leave school, we'll probably be halfway into at what point are we preparing them for this life in the 21st century, which is completely digital,
Yes.
right? It's a real shame that we're still having that argument about how are we filling this digital divide and getting the devices that are needed into the hands of the pupils, because I think that would shut down that conversation very quickly. There's
Yeah.
also another argument as to how do you handle things like cybersecurity, right? And
Mhm.
we're having arguments in some of the schools in the UK about staff using mobile phones in the classroom. And I'm like, I get the challenges around management and all of that stuff, but ultimately, people are responsible adults, and
Yeah.
you need to use the tools out there to keep yourself secure. And I'm talking about cybersecurity and two-factor authentication,
Yeah.
right? The cheapest way to do it is to use Microsoft Authenticator or Google Authenticator or Authy or 1Password or something like that allows
Mhm.
you to get those 2FA codes. It immediately makes your systems so much more secure. We need to stop having the arguments about whether we have the device in the classroom, and then ultimately that argument is going to come to students as well, because student work is important, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're towards the end of your school career, you're going on to do your GCSE or whatever national exams you have. Imagine your account was to get hacked and you lost all of that work. How do you submit for your exams, right?
It's so
Cybersecurity is not just an adult teacher staff thing, right? It's
Yeah.
for everyone. Um, and so there's a lot more consideration that needs to be had in terms of mobile phones in the classroom, but also just devices in general,
Devices.
right?
Yeah.
Um, I get the challenges around budget and stuff, but IT is a fundamental component of our life now, whether we like it or not. However
Mhm.
much it makes us feel comfortable or uncomfortable, the fact of the matter is it's there and it's not going anywhere, and it's
Yeah.
becoming more and more ingrained, right? Um, and we're going to have to find a way, the same way we find how to buy resources from books and textbooks and pens and stationery and that kind of stuff. You
Yeah.
have to find the same way on how it has to become a fundamental part of budgeting. Is how does this equipment factor in? How does the refresh of this equipment factor in? How does the maintenance of this equipment factor in? How does the security of it factor in?
Yeah, and I think from the standpoint of the kids, they're very aware. Like they don't feel good about having things just taken away for them, right? And so I'm not a huge fan of personal devices in the classroom because there's such a huge distraction. We're not able to make sure that they're secure. We're not sure, we're not able to monitor it. But having a device in the classroom can be so helpful just to teach kids about how they're used, to teach them about cybersecurity, to teach them how to use these things like Google Lens, for example, as a tool instead of something to do your homework for you. Right? So we're going to use this tool, but we're going to use it in a way to be curious. We're going to take it outside. You saw a cool, weird animal online. Let's scan that, or you saw it in a book. Let's scan that and learn more about it. right? And then they're on YouTube, and they're on YouTube to learn instead of just, the mindless doom scrolling or whatever. And I think the more opportunities we give to kids to have them use this tech in like a purposeful way, then it'll become habit for them. But if they're not being monitored, or they're not learning these skills of like good, responsible tech use, then when they finally get old enough to use it, they won't have those habits.
And, responsible tech use, we're seeing so much the importance of, being, we talk about it in online safety all the time about, how to responsibly use tech, and just how to be responsible humans. And especially with, the challenges we've had in the UK with the rise of the right-wing extremism, and then also with the fake news and stuff, especially coming towards the US presidential election.
Mhm.
There's an awful lot that we need to understand about life, and
Yes.
where tech fits in to just regular life
Oh, yeah.
integration and
Critical thinking.
that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we touched a bit on cybersecurity.
Yep.
Unfortunately, there have been a few schools in the UK that have been hit by a cyber attack that has forced them to close. This is worryingly a growing thing. It's been growing quite a lot over the years, and it's just you're hearing more and more. Almost every week, you're hearing a new organization, new school that has been hit by a cyber attack, that has been forced to close because they've had no access to their systems and stuff. And I think it is really, really important that schools start to really take this seriously, in terms of what does your IT look like, understanding your IT, understanding your systems, and just like, what would you do for, and I'm sure you're very familiar with this, what would you do for a snow day, right?
Yeah.
How do you mitigate that circumstance? What do you do, if there's a fire, if there's a natural disaster, what do you do in
Yeah.
those circumstances? The same way, you have to start considering, what do you do in the case of a cyber attack? And there are lots of amazing resources out there. In the UK, we have the National Cybersecurity Centre, which is a government institution which has lots of advice on that. There's also a company that I've recently started to do a little collaboration with, called Secure Schools, and they released a cybersecurity guide, which is great, and we'll put that onto the show notes. But I think it's really, really important that schools start to take this a lot more seriously, to avoid having to shut down and not be able to open up schools, which has a huge detrimental impact to the wider school community.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah, just changing. Everything is changing, but we got to keep up.
Indeed. Yes, definitely.
Oh, man.
Meagan, I think we've come towards the end of the episode.
I think we have.
Yeah, indeed. It's been a fun one, as always.
Yes. And I think we should
Hopefully,
do episode 3.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, any broadcasters out there, we're still open to being picked up.
Absolutely.
Totally. Someone will eventually pay for this one day. We will be back very, very soon. Please do catch up with us. We have our website, EdTech AM. And please do leave feedback. We have our feedback form towards the end of that page, so please leave your feedback on our website, edtecham.org. And then you can also catch up with us we are now on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well.
You can listen to us over and over again.
Yes, indeed. Who wouldn't want to listen to Abid and Meagan ramble on about everything on their very long drives? Hopefully not getting stuck with people playing hockey on the highway.
Hopefully not.
Indeed. We will be back very, very soon. Please do follow Meagan and I on Twitter. Not going to call it the one letter character. I'm Abid_Patel, and Meagan is Meagan Alfano, and we will be back very, very soon.
Yes, you can check out the show notes if you want links to any of the things that we talked about on our website. And then, yeah, we will see you on YouTube or Spotify or Apple.
See you
Okay.
later, everyone.
Bye.